I think we should probably start doing some introductions. For those who don't know me, I'm James Kidd. I'm an employment partner at Mills and Reeve, and you can see my dodgy haircut on that picture. Together with Becky Wilson from Pure, we run HR Energy. Becky, do you want to explain what HR Energy is? Or would you like me to?
Certainly. So yeah, HR Energy is obviously a collaboration between James and I, and we aim to bring all you lovely HR people together to share your experiences, hopefully give you some really good discussion points and helpful tips to take back to the workplace, but also just provide a really good opportunity for you all to network, get to know each other and support each other. So welcome, and it's lovely to have everybody here again.
Thank you, Becky. So without further ado, we're going to get cracking. So, I had some strange feedback. I'm really pleased, we're both really pleased that today we've got Carol and Charlotte from Mad HR, and they're going to be talking to us about how we're going to get HR to have that seat at the top table. I think that's a broad enough summary, isn't it, of where we are, what we're going to be talking about. There you go, how you get your seat at the table and keep it. I think that's the important qualification. I'm going to let them introduce themselves. Format today is really probably go about 45 minutes, then we'll take some questions. If you've got burning stuff that you want to ask, put it in the Q&A, and we will try and pick them up as we go through, but we will be out and done before 3. By all means, use the chat function to talk amongst yourselves and talk to us if you want to. Charlotte, Carol, welcome. Really great to have you here. Over to you.
Thank you, James, and hello and good afternoon to everybody. My name is Carol Berman. I'm Managing Director of Mad HR, and I'm delighted to be with you this afternoon with my colleague Charlotte Bake, who is Operations Director. I guess in thinking about our subject for today, Charlotte and I sort of got our heads together and recognised that with a combined 40 years of HR experience between us, we are passionate, absolutely passionate about wanting to make sure that HR continues to make a difference to the businesses that supports. That is, after all, why the consultancy is called Mad HR. And what we love about this session in terms of HR Energy is the fact that actually as HR people, we love to support each other. And that's why, as I say, we really enjoy these sessions. So in the spirit of paying it forward, what we wanted to do was perhaps share some of those nuggets that we have learned in our 40 years combined experience to help other people on their journey, on their HR journey, so that they can perhaps feel more equipped than certainly I probably did at the time. But what we're also looking to do is to make sure that during the time that we have together, that other people have the opportunity of sharing any tips that they may have as well. And we'd really welcome you to add some information and some tips that you've picked up in the chat box as well. It's our intention to keep the session as interactive as we possibly can. So there will be a few polls coming up because we really want you to be involved in the session. And I recognise Zoom is not great at making sure that it keeps your attention. So we've put in a number of polls so to avoid you starting to look at that inbox or starting to look at your mobile phone. So stick with us, please. As I say, if you've got any questions as we go through, then please just pop them in the Q&A section, and as I say, James will flag them during the session if need be, or we'll pick them up at the end. So the first thing we wanted to do was, I guess, working in HR, working as an employment lawyer, working in HR recruitment is say well done on making it this far. 2020 has been a year to remember for all the wrong reasons. And I think for many sectors, many professions, it's been incredibly challenging. And HR particularly have had to step up to the plate, because I think, you know, certainly Charlotte and I talk about it quite regularly. As HR people, we like to know the answers. If somebody gives you a problem, you want to be able to know how to resolve that, how to sort that problem out. And the problem is that with the current situation, there is so much that is unknown, which includes details of, you know, how furlough schemes work, how flexible furlough schemes work, because the detail is not always available to us at the time where the questions are being asked. So we wanted to make sure that we took this moment to just say well done. And as I say, what we're keen to do through the session today is pick up on the momentum that has been built as a result of HR coming to the fore more because it's had to, because of the pandemic, and to make sure that we don't lose that momentum.
So this is this picture for me just encapsulates what we've been through as HR professionals throughout 2020. And I'm sure you all agree that there's been a huge amount of change that we've had to react to. As HR professionals, you know, it's been quite an emotional roller coaster, not only for the businesses and the leaders and the teams that we're supporting, but also on a personal basis as well. Because, you know, we have to manage these emotions for us personally, but people are looking to us for support to help to navigate through all of these situations. And as Carol's just said, there's been so many incidents where, you know, the information about the latest government announcement has been released on the press, and then the details to follow, but everyone's looking to you for the answers as to, you know, what do we need to do next? And it's really difficult to be in a position where you can't categorically say, yes, absolutely, this is what we need to do. It's been such a rapid change in terms of the legislation and the guidance and, you know, all of the factors that it's involving. And businesses have really had to adapt to this new world, and we've had to adapt as HR practitioners to make sure that the business has the resource that it needs to restructure, to right size the business, to meet not only the kind of current demands of the business, but also to plan for the future demands of the business as well. It's also about managing the process of that right sizing, because not only are we trying to make sure that from a legal perspective the business is obviously protected, we're also making sure that, you know, we're dealing with those people that may be leaving our business in the right way, because ultimately, even if they do leave the organisation, they are still brand ambassadors, and that's an element that we are responsible for, protecting that employer brand. So making sure that if people are leaving the business, that they're not leaving with that bitter taste in their mouths, that they're not going to put off any potential applicants in the future. Equally, it's also about dealing with those people that are remaining with those businesses, those people that maybe have been furloughed, those people that have remained in the business and are working really hard to keep it all going, managing the culture of that business. You know, all of that is what we have had to deal with, as well as managing the kind of day-to-day situations and the COVID-related situations. We've had to take things online, so we've had to use technology even more quickly and get used to it and be familiar with it. And you know, technology is not my friend at the best of times, but we're having to adapt to this new world. And what it has brought is it has brought efficiencies. You know, we're able to react and respond to things more quickly, but equally there's also the other side of things as well, because you know, we've got things like Zoom fatigue and the expectation that you're always on, you're always there to respond. And so there's also that kind of creating the balance as well. And how can we maintain the impact of the culture of the business when people are literally spread across geographically? We might only ever see our colleagues with a little square box in the corner of a screen. So how can you manage the culture of the business and keep that morale and that motivation? You know, and deal with all of the interactions of and interruptions of the day-to-day as well.
Charlotte, just going back to that previous picture, I was getting very worried about the person at the top of the roller coaster, and just worried at how symbolic the picture was supposed to be. If you flick back, there is genuinely a person, look, right at the top of the arc.
Hanging off. Absolutely. This is obviously one of those places in Thailand where health and safety don't matter. And there, have you seen, I was watching something the other day, and they're literally going through and trying to use it all by foot, by human power, rather than through mechanical beings. So yeah, it's very strange. Anyway, back to this range of HR support. So since COVID has hit, what sort of things are we as HR practitioners having to get involved in? Well, obviously there's this kind of constantly changing furlough scheme from the government. Who hasn't been asked a million questions about this? And it's constantly changing, and it is almost a full-time position just keeping up to date with all of the latest government guidelines and the impact of it. the whole kind of flexible working, you know, making sure that people are in the right place at the right time, that they've got the equipment and the skills and the experience to be able to work from all of these different places and keep the business going as well. As I said, in terms of redundancies and right sizing, you know, I think that we will all have been involved in a number of these, both in a small scale and also a larger scale. And again, we're having to use technology to manage these processes, and they're quite emotive processes at the best of times. And you know, often is a case when you've got the ability to sit in front of somebody that you can really empathize with them and really, you know, deliver those key messages, and how we're having to adapt our styles to be able to deliver the same degree of empathy and manage the process from a practical point of view, using technology as well, because obviously with Zoom, you can't guarantee who else is in the room and listening in on conversations and interrupting and things like that as well. From our perspective, we're seeing a lot from of recruitment activities that are going on as well, because with COVID, in terms of making sure that we've got the right people in the right places, a lot of businesses are recognising that they maybe haven't got the right talent or skill set within the business to deal with those challenges ahead. So we're having to attract that talent within the business, and then it's kind of managing the expectation as well, because surely it's easy to recruit now, isn't it? Because with unemployment being at an all-time high, there's lots and lots of people available. Well, actually, as HR practitioners, it's a bit of a nightmare, because we're having to go through and we're, you know, filtering through all of those CVs and applications. It's not only the journey that we're taking those successful candidates on, it's also the journey that we're taking those unsuccessful candidates on, so that we're protecting our employer brand, because just because they're not right for right now doesn't mean that they're not right for the future. And equally, you know, with the uncertainty in a number of industries, actually encouraging people to maybe leave a secure position and the talent, you know, within that business, it has to be a really compelling offer to encourage people to move on. And for every offer that you make, you've probably all come across it where there's been an immediate counter offer because that organisation doesn't want that talent to leave. So it does make it incredibly challenging, and it is a lot about managing the expectations of the business and the leaders within the business, because everyone, you know, is pedaling really hard to get results. But what may seem as a really easy or straightforward situation, actually we're having to be more clever in how we approach these situations. Equally, you know, in terms of the disciplinaries and grievances, you know, unfortunately, we are still having a huge amount of these that we're dealing with, and the complexity of these issues are increasing every single month, to be perfectly honest. And again, I'm sure that a number of you out there will have come across it, because, you know, when you're faced with entering into the unemployment market, then, you know, making sure that you can gain as much income as you possibly can is at the forefront of many people's minds. Also, you know, coming from, we're talking here about how to get a seat at the table and how to keep it. For those of you that already do have that seat at the table, or you may more recently have been invited to have a seat at the table, it's about getting involved in those business plans as well and future proofing the business. And obviously, as HR practitioners, that's a vital, you know, piece of involvement that we could have within the business to make sure that we are fully understanding, you know, what are those business opportunities? What does that mean from a human perspective? You know, what skills and experience do we need to have within the organisation, and how can we plan proactively to make sure that we have what the business needs? A number of us have had to get involved in the financial support bids for the business, so where those government grant schemes and those bids, you know, that's taken a huge amount of time, but it's absolutely business critical. And then it's also about supporting all of those senior leaders, those middle managers, literally every single level of the business. That has fallen to us to make sure that we are, you know, making sure that everybody everybody knows what they need to do, has a very clear sense of direction, that we've got the commitment to deliver the business plan, and also we are still driving that performance. And actually, you know, the last section on there about planning for growth, we've been very lucky that we're involved in a number of businesses that are looking at growth, but this is significant growth. And, you know, that again brings all of its challenges. So it isn't necessarily all just about the kind of whole restructuring and downsizing organisations. There is a lot of growth opportunity out there as well. And I think what businesses, in our experience, they're really looking to do things right from the start and do it in a very planned way, to make sure that, you know, they're able to tackle these challenges in a very proactive way rather than just react, really. So enough of me kind of talking, really. This is the first poll, so it would be great if we could get some interaction here. So how would you describe your situation as a HR professional? So we've got a bit of an understanding of who we've got in the room. If you could hit number one, if you're kind of at the start of that and you're gaining experience and in order to have a seat at the table in the future, then please let us know. If you're actively trying to get a seat at the table but you're not quite there, if that describes you, then please let us know. You might already have a well-established seat at the table, or it might be that actually you've got an established seat but you are keen to ensure that you keep it, because we can't take anything for granted. So we've got quite a mixed bag here. We've got a number of people that are working, trying to gain that experience in order that they can have that future seat at the table. It's really quite evenly spread across all four of those categories. So we've got a really nice spread across the team. So we'll make sure that we, as we go through this presentation, that we can draw on all of those different levels of experience and different journeys that people are on as well.
In the spirit of some further audience participation, what we wanted to do was just ask you, when it comes to what you've had to deal with since lockdown, both personally and professionally, we'd just like you to put a few words in the chat box. If you can, just make sure you mark it for all panelists and attendees. Just share what you've been dealing with. It could be anything from, you know, the challenges of working from home, you know, homeschooling, you know, whatever it is that's for you has been the real challenge. Really interested to know what you've been going through. Keeping everyone feeling connected socially and maintaining our social culture while working remotely. It's really interesting, actually. HR has suddenly had to become the social secretary. If ever there's a quiz or anything that needs to be done, we've got to magic up or even be a festive fairy as it is at the moment, I think. All they're coming thick and fast now. Homeschooling, looking responsibility for well-being, maintaining connection.
Another one that says that HR people aren't superhumans, but you're all superheroes.
Yeah, and that's been part of the challenges. Is that we're all very good. We are that type of person, and we are people. That means that essentially we're there to support everybody else, and sometimes that means it's to our own detriment, because we are so giving of our time to everybody else. Yeah, supporting others' mental health while also remembering to look after my own. Absolutely, thank you for sharing.
And I think that kind of brings us on to this next section, really, about the need to build our grit. And so, you know, grit is the ability to persist in something that you feel really passionate about. And I know that I've spoken to a number of HR professionals, and I'm sure that this is all of you, that you're incredibly passionate about the role of HR, about the contribution that you can make, and the impact that you can have within business. And, you know, this is for all HR professionals, grit is so important because, you know, it is about identifying those obstacles and helping ourselves and others to overcome them. As HR leaders, we support the leaders of the business and the business owners to create that really clear direction, as I said before, and to gain the commitment of the team and to drive the performance. And we are the ones that the business will look to for answers, that, you know, they'll look for that strength, they'll look for that determination, that tenacity and that resilience. And the thing is, if we are unsure in any way, or if we're lacking confidence, then that can create this sense of mistrust or lacking confidence or suspicion amongst the rest of the teams. And we can't afford for that to happen in the best of times, let alone in these worst of times as well. As HR people, it's our responsibility to make sure that, you know, our businesses have got the right people in the right place, with the right skill sets, and that we are ready to help to identify and overcome any of those barriers or any of those obstacles. And, you know, we are often the face of the organisation, not only internally, but externally as well. And so, you know, there's always this strong feeling of needing to present a really positive, professional, polished image of the organisation, and also of HR as a function as well. And, you know, when we're out networking with other people, whether we're doing it on a HR perspective or whether we're doing it on behalf of the business, you know, and someone says to you, you know, how are things going? It's highly unlikely that you're going to say, actually, it's a bit rubbish. It's not very good. Not really sure what to do next. I'm feeling a bit blue, because, you know, we are those brand ambassadors. We are used to being chameleons and being able to adapt to those circumstances. But this is why, as a HR community, it's so very important. And, you know, we've got this wonderful HR energy session that we can support each other as a HR community, where we can be real, where we can be open and honest about the challenges that we face. Because, you know, you can't always have this painted on smile. The fact is that we have to deal with a lot of stuff, and a lot of it is not nice. And it's only when you actually have to deal with this on a day-to-day basis that you can really understand and appreciate not only the impact that that's having on those that you're dealing with, but also the impact that it's having on you. It takes such a huge amount of effort to kind of present this shiny facade. But it's really important that we're looking after ourselves, and that we've got those support networks, that community where we can be open and honest, and where we can give each other that lift. You know, as a lot of the work that I do, that Carol does, and that our team does, it's about working on the resilience of the organisation. I'm sure that you are all doing that for your organisations as well. So looking at the resilience of the organisation and also individuals. But what's really important is that we're also looking at our own resilience, that we're also looking at the resilience of the HR, the wider HR function as well. Because, you know, we need to make sure that we're looking after ourselves first. And this, if you have heard me before, then it's something which I share with a lot of business leaders, and I'm doing it even more at the moment, that we have to look after ourselves first. If you can remember the time when you were on an aeroplane jetting off to somewhere hot and sunny, sorry to bring that up, but we can all just sit here and dream and reflect. But when you were on the aeroplane, what was the message that they delivered? When the oxygen masks come down, you put them on yourselves first before you help everyone else. And as a HR function, we are so used to spinning all of these plates and helping everybody else, that we often put ourselves to the back of the queue when it comes to looking after, you know, the function in ourselves. So please look after yourself first, because if you are in the very best position, physically, mentally, then you are going to be in the better place to be able to support the business as well. So we have got another poll. And that's moving from the kind of individual through to the organisation. How has the pandemic impacted the perception of HR within your business? I'm really interested to understand this from your perspective, because we've seen a real mixed bag. So has COVID negatively impacted how HR are seen as a business? Are you seen as the Grim Reaper, donning your black cloak and your scythe? Absolutely. You know, are you the bearers of the bad news, and when HR come onto site then somebody leaves? Or actually, has the pandemic allowed you to come to the forefront? Has it improved the perception? Has there not been any change? You were, you know, you absolutely were adding lots of value beforehand, and in terms of the perception, it's not changed. So have we got the results of the poll back? Okay, so we've got 7% have seen a negative impact on how HR has been seen in the business. What I'm loving here is 46% have seen much more involvement in the business at all levels, proactive as well as reactive, and that's just a wonderful thing to see there. And I think, you know, I'm a passionate believer in the value of great HR within an organisation, and I think it's just a given that HR should have a seat at the table because of the impact that it can have. But I completely recognise that I'm slightly swayed in my perception there, but you know, I think that what this whole kind of pandemic situation has done is it's really given us a really great platform to shine from, to show how not only we can support the business from an operational day-to-day perspective and react to the situation, but also from a strategic input as well. So in terms of HR's concerns over the next 3 months, so through some of the conversations that we've been having with people, and this may resonate with some of you, but I'm just wanting to go through and share what some of our findings have been in terms of what the key concerns are. And one of them is about the impact of this pandemic on a longer term basis, where it comes to demotivating the workforce. So how are we dealing with that as HR people? You know, are we still regularly checking in with people and doing those temperature checks? Are they running out of energy? And I know from, you know, speaking to a number of business leaders, that they could deal with the first lockdown, and when the weather was a bit better, and you know, having to deal with everything that the COVID virus threw at us, you know, they'd built up enough energy and enough reserves to deal with that. But actually, with the second lockdown, with the weather changing, with Christmas coming upon us, with, you know, the financial impact of the virus kind of, you know, being felt a bit more, it's really impacting people. So it's not just the teams, it's also the business leaders. So we really need to be looking and placing some energy and some focus on that as well. Equally, you know, with the workforce, have they got that clear sense of direction? Do they know where we're going with things? How is the organisation actually dealing with situations? Are they, you know, are the behaviours which are being demonstrated, are the decisions that are being made, are they in line with the values of the organisation? How are we, you know, making sure that people are remaining engaged? Because a lot of these kind of key projects that were happening, and we had it ourselves with our clients, you know, in terms of these engagement projects and communications projects and things like that, they kind of went by the wayside. They just got paused because we were dealing with the day-to-day reactive stuff. But actually now is the time when those key projects need to be picked up because they are so impactful and so important for the organisation. We saw in the chat before that mental health and well-being is something which we're all having to deal with more and more. And again, this isn't just the mental health and the well-being of the team, the wider team in general. We're also there as a support for those business leaders. So, you know, we need to make sure that that support is ongoing, that it's wide reaching, that it's very focused and targeted in areas as well, and that we are supporting our businesses with that. Maintaining culture. Well, how, as we kind of spoke about before, with the flexible working, with people being all over the place and working from the different environments, how can we make sure that we're maintaining the culture of the business? if through those growth opportunities, or you know, you're getting, I was talking to a client just this morning, and we've been supporting them with recruitment, and they've replaced or added another half to their business. So, you know, how can they make sure that they're maintaining that culture of the business? How are we making sure that you know, we are driving the right behaviours and that we're acting in line with the values of that organisation? And also it's about managing the return to the office. It's a bit like, you know, how, I don't know, some of you may have gone on maternity leave, for example, and had a year out of the business and then come back, and it's almost like it doesn't take you long to get back into the swing of things, but it's just different, and you have to find your bearings. Think about when you first started in a job role or a new environment, and it's that initial, oh, how does it all work? So when you're managing that return, if people are returning to the workplace having worked remotely for a long time, it's about managing the expectations on both sides as well, because, you know, it's about that whole onboarding piece, knowing what the new processes are, giving the time to ensure that it isn't just a case of, well, we can just continue as we used to do, because the world is a slightly different place now. So, you know, it's not just about managing that process for the people that are returning to the office environment or the workspace, but it's also managing the expectations of the managers and the leaders of the business about how that will operate as well. Maintaining the communication. I spoke before about, you know, Zoom fatigue. I think a lot of businesses now are looking at the way that they're structuring, you know, their workplaces, the workspaces, how we're communicating. So I don't think Zoom or video conferencing is ever going to go away. But, you know, this is a really important part of how we're managing this process moving forward, because you know, what we don't want to do is we don't want to have a case of information overload. We equally don't want people to be tied to their laptops, because, you know, when we're looking at mental health and well-being, we've also got to think about physical health. You know, you will have seen it that, you know, for the when we're looking at demographic studies, young people gaits are changing because of, you know, them being hunched over an iPhone and you know, walking down the street with it. Actually, we've got a physical, we've got to think about the physical well-being of people as well. How many people have sat on a Zoom call for hours and hours thinking, I haven't even been to the loo yet, or I haven't had a time to, you know, go and make a cup of tea. That whole 10,000 steps, well, I don't even do 10 steps, or I might do just to go to the toilet once a day. So it's about thinking not only about the mental health and well-being, but also the physical health and well-being, and how we are communicating with people effectively and not losing that human contact. And also from, you know, the HR, what the concerns are. It's about how the impact that we can have on this business strategy, about how we can forecast in quite uncertain times, about how we can manage the right sizing of the business, making sure that we've got all of the right resource in the right place at the right time. And equally, we're not overcommitting the organisation in any way for the future as well. So I just wanted to go on really for another poll. And Carol, I'm going to hand over to you at this point, because I've done enough talking, I think.
Okay. So what we wanted to ask you is, sort of after dealing with the issues of the last 10 months, what's your biggest concern for your business for the next 3 months? So is it the level of redundancies to manage? Is it maintaining the company culture after return from work, or indeed perhaps still dealing with some redundancies? Or is it keeping staff motivated, productive, supporting their mental health and well-being? Is it planning for growth? Or if it's something else, i.e. you're going to select other, then it would be really helpful if you could just put what that other might be in the chat box. As I say, we're really keen to understand what's going on in your businesses right now, so that, as I say, we can focus on how the next part of our presentation might be able to help.
We think that one of the biggest challenges will be the non-spring back when we've got the vaccine. So will everybody just go back to pre-March, or actually it's going to be the mixture of the hybrid nature of the working and the issues arising from that? Not one of your options though.
And in all honesty, and thank you, Sam, for reminding us of the B word that we haven't mentioned. We purposely avoided it because we wanted to make sure that everybody enjoyed Christmas and not have to worry about what they're going to come back to. So, yeah, maintaining motivation and mental health is out there in lead. And interestingly, as I say, planning for growth. So now is that perfect opportunity for HR to continue the momentum that it's had in terms of how it's been supporting the business and making sure that it continues on that journey. So conflicts between, and some it's as simple as survival, and we get that. So
just interestingly, very quickly, there was a LinkedIn survey of leaders, and we've spoken a bit about the HR concerns over the next 3 months, but this is what has come out for the business leaders. So 39% are concerned that company culture has changed, and that is for the worse. So we've got some work to do there from a HR perspective. Also 35% are concerned that motivations dropped, and 30% think that it'll be at least 6 months before the majority of the team returns to the office. So these are what are keeping our business leaders up at night, and they're certainly going to be looking to us as HR to help support them in overcoming that.
So from our perspective, we recognise that HR can often be seen as a back office support function. It's seen as the gatekeeper department, the department that is full of all of the red tape that stops business from doing what business wants to do. But we recognise that HR, those two initials, seem so inadequate to describe the service that we provide and the value that we add. We're called Make a Difference because we firmly believe that HR, when done well, can really make a difference to the long-term success of the company. And what we have observed is that 2020 has given HR professionals a unique opportunity to capitalise on the exposure that it's getting, and to be able to continue to demonstrate the value that HR can add to the business. So what we've done is there is an image that we're about to show you, which looks at what is it that the skills that an HR director of the future is going to need, and they're very nicely categorized into 4 quadrants. And I apologize that it's all very small, but the skills are on the inside, and a lot of it is really interesting. It's about the ability to adapt and connect to people. It's about the ability to be able to think strategically and really get under the ribs of the business and not necessarily see life purely as an HR professional, which is really interesting. The next element, thanks Charlotte, is the skills that you need to take that, or the tips that they give, that the graphic shows you, is how can you elevate that skill and move it so that actually it's something that you can amplify with the work that you do with businesses. And I want to share with you an experience that I had where, and I'm sure if you haven't had it, then there is a time where you may have it, whereby sometimes the behaviour of the leader of the business is the thing that's actually not helping the business move forward. And HR sometimes has that responsibility of being the conscience of the business, and it's your responsibility to sit down with the chief exec and show how trustworthy you could be by being able to give them that feedback, done with a kind heart and done very constructively, but done in a way that means that actually people, and the chief executive particularly, knows that you can be trusted. You're giving them the insight of your experience and the benefit that you can bring to them to help them be a better leader. And that's one way in which that relationship strengthens that relationship and enables you to then inspire trust with one another. So that's really, really important. So when you are in that situation whereby you really want to get your seat and you want to keep your seat, the first thing I would say is approach life as if you are a business person. You know, you've got to understand your business, and we've got to move HR from being the department that does the hiring and firing. You are absolutely a commercial being first and foremost. So it's important to really understand, where is your business going that you work in? What's its strategy? What's its business plan? Demonstrate that you are commercially aware. I think it's all too often where when we as HR professionals, we talk about continual professional development, and we tend to focus on, oh, I don't know enough about employment law, or I don't know enough about employee development, or I need to go and do something that's very HR related. The benefit that can be gained by actually saying, do you know what, I'm going to go and learn more about finance. I'm going to go and learn about actually what goes on in a marketing department, because all of those skills are things that you will be bringing back and will make you a stronger HR person. I remember when I joined the business, I was appointed as HR director. It was very clear that the executive team, the board of directors, didn't necessarily want an HR director because they'd never had one. Why did they need one? And clearly it was my job to stop them from doing what they wanted to do. And I had 2 months to go around and do an audit of the business, went round and did an audit of the business. And what I discovered was, if you're not familiar with the term car park chat, it's that premise whereby, somebody is taken out, shown around the car park, and then basically politely shown the door. And they were doing an awful lot of that, writing out settlement agreements. Honestly, James, you would have loved it. It would have kept you in business continually. And they were spending an absolute small fortune. And the problem was that, they didn't want me. So when I went to, was positioning what HR can bring to the business, and perhaps how we might need to be better resourced, or we needed a little bit of investment, they just looked at me as if to say, well, what are you going to do? And I invited them to identify how much money they were spending on settlement agreements. Not even the finance director got it right. I was in a position whereby using data, using the ability to speak out and to be able to use the numbers, I was able to say, my job is to stop you wasting that money, because that's coming straight off your bottom line. And immediately I said that, then it was just like, I come from the commercial brand of HR. I understand the world of business, and therefore I wasn't seen as being pink and fluffy. And actually, that helped me get my seat. Staying current and making sure I understood where the business was going and continuing is what helped me keep it.
Pink and fluffy, I doubt it.
Oh well.
Sorry.
True, very true.
James, you know us too well. So absolutely, in terms of getting your seat and keeping your seat, there's lots that you can do. It's really about taking action. So, how can you make that difference? How can you make sure that the change has the desired effect? As Carol said, it's about, as HR professionals, we encourage feedback. We love to get feedback. We love this continual improvement. We actively, work hard to keep up our continual professional development as well. And so let's do something about it. And as Carol said, when we're looking at our continual professional development, don't just stick within those HR related topics. Go and spend the afternoon with marketing. Go and book yourself on a digital marketing course, or go and spend some time with the finance function, because actually what it's doing is it's giving you greater exposure, greater understanding of all of the facets of the organisation, and it can help you. Spending time with your marketing department, it can help you on your communication strategies internally. It can help how you present the employer brand. You can work hand in hand together with that. It's only going to make you a more rounded HR person and add to the credibility within the organisation as well. There's also I don't really like the term fake it until you make it, but I think it really is more a case of, believe until you achieve, because I'm incredibly passionate about the value of great HR. At the end of the day, HR can positively impact profitability, productivity. It can reduce costs. It can have such a massive impact on the business. It's not pink and fluffy. It's not that it can't hold tissues and Tampax situation. You can fundamentally, I'm sorry James, you can fundamentally impact the bottom line, and so there is a huge impact that you can have on a business, and you have to believe it. because if you believe it, then that will help give the rest of the business confidence that you're able to deliver as well. So think about your posturing, think about your positioning, all of those great coaching techniques that you give to your management team. Take your own good advice, take the time to really reflect on what you're doing and how you're doing it as well, and really kind of give some positive affirmations of yourself. And when you're thinking about your leadership style and how you are presenting yourself, you know, I always think of HR people as chameleons. And when I say that, I mean it with love, in the fact that, you know, as chameleons, we absolutely have to adapt ourselves to the environment in which we're in. You know, we speak to different people of all walks of life at different kind of levels and status and hierarchies within the organisation. And we have to be able to connect on an emotional level with these people. And the fact is that, you know, chameleons are chameleons. They don't suddenly morph into an elephant. So what I'm not saying is, you know, that we need to change into someone else or try and adapt someone else's style. We have to be authentic and comfortable in our own selves, but it's about how we adapt ourselves to be able to have the greatest impact and influence in that environment. So take some time to prepare about how you're going to deal with situations and put all of those kind of deploy your situational leadership skills to the best effect, really. So that's just a bit about getting your seat and actually keeping it, you know, within your organisation, and whatever kind of section of your journey you're on, hopefully you will have found some tips that are useful. So thank you so much for your time. I'm very aware of time, and we've gone over a little bit, so I apologise, because I know that we need to have some time for the questions and answering session as well. But just yeah, thank you on Carol and my behalf for listening to us, and hopefully you all found some useful tips.
Brilliant. Thank you, Charlotte. Thank you, Carol. Actually, it really resonated with me listening to the commerciality part. I can honestly say some of the work I've been doing with clients through all of this, looking to get yourself that seat at the table, it absolutely is about that commerciality. It's thinking beyond HR practices. It's getting out into the business, just taking time to speak to people, understand what they do. So yeah, really resonated with me. And anybody out there that's looking for that next step, absolutely go get some more commercial business-wide experience.
I forgot to say, actually, I just wanted to say Merry Christmas to everyone. And I hope that you get the opportunity to do this over the Christmas period because we've all earned it. And there is a huge challenge ahead of us. So we need to put our oxygen masks on over the Christmas period and make sure that we're in the best possible position to tackle those challenges in the new year. So, yes, I just wanted to make that point.
I think you all deserve to have a really good rest and a very, very good Christmas.
What do you think about Alex's comment about making the boss look good in the chat, if you can see that?
Oh.
Alex says, I would add that making your boss / the MD look good and ensuring they know they have your personal support is really important. I think that's really good.
I agree, but I also think that there is an accountability and a responsibility also to be truthful. And if they are doing something that is not helpful to that, then in HR, you've got a responsibility to have a quiet word with them and just help them understand how they might be able to optimize what they're already doing.
Very good. Anybody else got any other comments in the chat or in the Q&A? Julian says, building relationships with all members of the board to get their understanding. Yeah, I think
I've presented enough board papers that I know that I never went to a board meeting without having shared that with a number of those people around the table to check and make sure that it made sense to them. You know, what might be the concerns, what might be the objections, because that is, you know, it's what we do. It's about getting, as Charlotte said, it's about getting that feedback to make sure that actually what you're then going to do is you're already presenting something that people have already felt that they've contributed to. So guess what? Most times when I presented a board paper, it got through because I did all of that preparatory work, because I saw it as an investment in time and relationships.
so. That's about working the people as well as the issue, isn't it? So it's
yeah, working the people does sound a little bit more Machiavellian, James, but you know, it is about actually engaging people. If you want to get the right outcome, then actually it's about making sure that you are engaging with them and actually helping them be part of the outcome.
And also you get that support if you're going through a change or something like that. If you've got your board members, your senior leaders on that journey with you, it makes the change and the buy-in even better.
I think it's also about reading the room and knowing your audience. So you are speaking in a language that actually resonates with people, that you're not kind of coming out with a lot of HR jargon or, you know, things which are topical just for the sake of it, that, you know, you are reading the room and using that data, those statistics, that you are talking in very kind of commercial terms, and you're reflecting, you know, those discussions and, you know, those words that are commonly used within the business as well. Because at the end of the day, HR is there to support the business to move forward. So reflecting the business practices and ways, I think that's really important. So, you know your audience and really focus what you're saying and how you're saying it.
What it does do, picking up on what Charlotte's just said, is gives you that credibility and that kudos. That means that actually your opinion will be sought on other matters beyond just your area of expertise. The number of times that our consultants, I'm sure you will find it, you know, once you become that trusted advisor, people will then start talking to you about, oh, I've got, you know, we've had clients that have said, you know, I'm thinking about doing this marketing campaign. What do you think? You know, we are a member of the general public. Would I have any, you know, what could I offer in the sense I'm not a marketeer, but it's the fact that actually they respect and value your opinion. And that's really, really important, because you've put in the time in the relationship and they trust you.
Should we close, Becky? What do you think?
Have we got any more questions in there? Don't think we have.
No.
Have we? Oh.
I've
Well,
got one.
thank you again. Thank you both so much for a really great presentation. Thank you everybody who's logged on, spent an hour with us. It's always lovely to have everybody taking part. I just love to say to all of you, please look after yourselves. You deserve a lovely Christmas and a really good break. We'll be coming back in March for another HR Energy, so watch this space for our topics. Moving forward, we will continue these virtual meetings. If any of you have any ideas of topics you'd like to cover, you'd like to share, please get in touch with James or I. Again, if you've got any questions about today's topic that you want to discuss away from the chat, please feel free to contact any one of us. We'd love to talk to you. And just goes without saying, just have a lovely, lovely Christmas, all of you, and keep yourselves safe.
Very good. Thank you, everyone. Take care. And we all have to wave now because we've established that we all wave.
Do you have to do the
Yes.
wave? You don't wave in a meeting, but do you do a wave on Zoom? Merry Christmas, everybody.